streaming.
Just so I can like see questions and stuff that pop up?
No, so that possibly that's great too, but so that we get one more viewer.
Oh, yeah,
I know it's really silly, but our numbers, because we've been doing these live streams and we've been on for hours talking about things, and we've gotten only a few people actually listening, our numbers on Twitch are falling. Our average watch viewer count is falling.
Yeah, sure.
And we're so close to getting the status where we can start running ads and stuff on our channel. Like we're within like a micron of it. Like we're just right there. So I was like, if you open it and I open it, like I always open it just to watch the stream anyway, or to make sure it's on. But yeah, anyway, a little behind the scenes for everybody listening. Okay, so that is on. That is on. You about ready?
Talk one more time. For a minute, I thought I was getting an echo.
Checkity check 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 check.
Okay, I think we're fine. Never mind.
By the way, I think I figured a way to fix that, and for the next stream, I'll try to have that done.
Awesome.
Where like it'll never happen. It won't even be sending your audio back to you, and we'll have to rely on Skype to be able to attenuate or whatever.
Nice.
Cool. Well, I'm basically ready when you are.
All right. Hold on. Let me turn my sound way up for 1 second. Oh, I know what's happening. Is I'm now getting the sound from Twitch TV.
Oh yeah.
Now, okay. Now I just muted Twitch TV, so now we should be fine.
Sweet.
Okay.
All right.
Today on the Bingers Assemble podcast, we are talking about Altered Carbon, Season 1, Episode 8, Clash by Night. And today we are learning that I don't have any idea what we're learning because this was a confusing episode. And you can join us in the confusion right after this ad that we have no control over. So I hope you're going to be able to edit it out. I'm getting an awful lot of noise, food and drink noise sounds.
Oh yeah, I was only gonna take one bite while you were doing your thing.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
I'm not gonna continue to take bites. Sorry. Sorry, live stream. I needed that bite. Okay. Welcome to Bingers Assemble. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm Matthew S. Fox.
And today we're going to talk about Altered Carbon Season 1, Episode 8. Let's talk about it, man. What'd you think?
Oof. This was, I feel like we learned a lot, but also a lot doesn't make any sense. And I think this is the kind of episode where, I'm thinking this is kind of a bridge episode where we found a lot of the puzzle pieces, but a lot of them are being deliberately held back. And so we don't really understand it much. And I'm both a little frustrated because this is something the show hasn't been doing up till now, but I also feel like it's all starting to come together, and that like in 1 or 2 more episodes, it's all going to make sense.
Yeah,
that's certainly my hope.
Those of you who watch the live watch with us on the Netflix party will know that we had to jump back a few times, which is the first time we've done that. I was just like, what did he say? Like, what did the sister say about the thing? And what is the answer to the mystery? Because apparently there's an answer to the mystery, and I'm very confused. And so we jumped back 3 or 4 times during the episode to like, and actually went back like 3 minutes at one point because we were just like, I don't know what I don't even understand.
Yeah.
So the biggest mystery, I do think I understand what happened in this episode. It just took me rewinding, so we can talk about that. I may have gotten stuff you didn't, but the one big mystery, which he apparently figured out, but we haven't yet, is what did he do, or what actually happened? And I think I do know. So I guess I think I know what happened. So what are your questions? By the way, I forgot to do it. This is the episode where basically he has just found out his sister is the one behind all of this, and he goes and she tells him he must frame someone for the murder of Bancroft, and so he does. He basically sets upon a plan to basically frame the woman who I can never remember her name, but she's the like the social climber woman, and then does frame her and convinces Bancroft and his whole family. And Bancroft is very upset because he says, "Oh, my great mystery was just human weakness and human greed and my own weakness." But it's not. Something else happened.
So let me walk through my understanding of what we learned in this episode.
Okay.
And then you can start to jump in and tell me either what I'm missing or what you think, and we'll try and keep those separate. So we find out that first of all, we find out that his sister is not just someone who's been around for a whole bunch of time, but is a meth herself.
At least some sort of form of meth. Meth just means means she's old, so she's definitely a meth. But she doesn't seem as powerful. You know, I was thinking she was going to be more powerful than Bancroft or all these people, but turns out with her one line about how much money you just cost me. I was like, does she care? Does she need those bodies? I don't know. That seemed a little like I could never see Bancroft going, "Do you know how much money you just cost me?" Maybe he would. I don't know.
I mean, I think she's kind of in that world. Like, as happened. She's a person who would go to his parties, but she's not the richest of the people who go to his parties. But
she's still trying to impress them with her whole snake conversation. By the way, was the snake lady the same lady who said she set up I thought it was a different lady, but I must have been wrong, or I don't know. There was a lady he had a conversation with at the party about how she set him up to be out of the ice. Like, she recommended him to be brought forward. And I thought that was, I didn't think that was the snake lady, but now in this episode, it made it sound like it was. That she was the one who.
I thought it wasn't the same person, but maybe it was.
Okay. Maybe that's one of the confusing things I missed.
So we learned that the sister Ray is not only Methuselah, and as she describes it, a captain of industry, but that actually she's been pulling a whole bunch of the strings behind everything that's been happening for this entire show.
Yes.
Which I found disappointing for reasons we'll get to in a bit, but okay, so now we know that. We also found out that actually a lot of this sort of cult of religion, especially from the murder guy, that's actually that what he worships is the Methuselahs.
Yeah.
Also something to kind of, let's put a pin in that because there's a lot to discuss there.
Mr. Lung is a worshiper of the meths.
But the big thing that we find out is that, at least in this part, that Kovacs now has figured out why Ray did all the things she did. And that apparently all of this was in order to just bring him back, that was the end goal of all of this. And that somehow she therefore arranged for him to be killed in a particular way such that when he came back, he would want to try to hire someone to figure out the murder, and thus they could get Kovacs back in.
See, I didn't get that.
Okay, so what was your take on what was happening there?
Well, I think maybe she would like to say that. And I think she has been aiming to get him back for a long time, but it seems that this death was not on purpose, or whatever ended up killing Bancroft wasn't her intent. And there's a moment where she says, "I need you to do something," and Kovacs goes, "Oh, of course." And I think the response was basically like, "You only pulled me out because you need me. Like 250 years I've been in there, and you pulled me out because like it seems a little more like she is looking for the ally of her brother in this situation, maybe even more so than doing all of this stuff to bring about the brother. I don't know though. It's hard to know, and I think she would say that, as she did, that everything she's done over time has been to get her brother out. But
so then if she didn't intend to kill Kovacs if she didn't intend to kill Bancroft to get Kovacs out, what's the situation that she accidentally killed Bancroft totally unrelated and then said, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble now. I have to get Kovacs out to help me"?
I think Bancroft killed himself.
Okay, you're still on that theory.
I am. Well, because she says, I think that Bancroft legitimately. So Bancroft says the thing that happens at the end, and this is not revealed yet. This is my supposition based on what happens at the end. The end, he looks through the telescope, he sees this other planet, and then he flashes to the Raven when he's offering, "You can go to the pleasure planet." and then he says, we know what Bancroft's kink is, which is killing sleeves.
Right.
And then we also know that she said she gave him what he always wanted, or what he wanted, and the horse, or whatever, the horse serum she gave him might have affected his judgment. So I think what actually happened, this is supposition, is she needle cast him off to some other world, which is probably where he was looking, that pleasure planet or whatever.
Right.
And he did so many horrible things, probably real death to people, not just killing sleeves, if I had to guess, because he has a line. He keeps saying he has a line, but you know, if he's on enough of this, like, whatever horse serum or whatever she called it, I think that he probably killed some people, maybe killed a lot of people, really let himself go and be the evil, like, let the evil out because he was on drugs. And then he came back and regretted it so much that he destroyed his brain before it could be backed up. That's my guess.
Okay.
But that's a guess.
So, but in that case, so why did Ray feel the need to bring back Kovac?
Well, again, it could be that she wanted her brother back, but she probably needed to bring someone. She probably just basically saw this tale that she could spin. She knew that Bancroft was obsessed with the envoys. She probably knew that finally she had an excuse to get her brother back. It does seem like Bancroft is more powerful than her in some way, so maybe he could get Kovac out when she never could. But also, she also needed someone she thought she could bring on as an ally so that she could get the lie told, because she offered him these pleasures. You know what I mean? So no one can know what she did, and that's why she needs him to help cover everything up. Okay. Yes, that's what I'm thinking is going on here.
Yeah, I definitely got the sense that it went deeper than that. That she was kind of like in charge of everything the whole time. You know, and had arranged for the Bancroft killing specifically to generate the situation. But you're right. I don't know, and
my guess was that she wanted to get like compromise on him, you know, like get him to do something so bad, and then like have him know about it and have him be able to be blackmailed with it or whatever. And maybe he still could be, but then he blew out his own brain and stack, as it showed. So like he doesn't even he has no recollection of this thing ever happening. So
yeah, I mean, it could be. So this is where I got frustrated with this episode, because there's a lot of really good things happening, but this technique of our characters are going to figure something out, but they're not going to tell you, the audience, because they want to drag out when you and the audience figures it out. That's a fairly common technique these days that I can't stand. And I feel like for the most part, this show hasn't been doing that. For the most part, like, there's a mystery, but then once the characters figure it out, you, the audience, knows as well. So I found all of that kind of frustrating. But, you know, again, we're coming to the end of the season. Maybe we're about to have some really big reveals, and they want to set it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we got this episode. The actual meat of this episode isn't that. The meat of this episode is him performing this sort of heist to trick everyone by infecting that other establishment, by having Poe infect that other establishment, which was interesting from again, like the ethics of the AI perspective. These other AI hate humans, and so it seems forgivable to us from our perspective that, like, so that's a bad hotel or a bad establishment. But, you know, again, from a AI rights perspective, maybe they were perfectly reasonable in their decisions. Yeah. But we did have him at the end threatening Lizzie, which made him seem like a monster, at least. But I mean, he's only doing to humans what he thinks humans do to them, and so it's kind of you know, I would have liked that to have been a little more ethically questionable, but it was fun to see Poe, or as Lizzie calls him, Eddie, which I loved.
Yeah, and that whole thing was kind of shot weird, because at first it seems like Poe is so offended by this horrible thing that the other guy is saying that he leads him to be destroyed, but of course we know that no, that was Poe's plan all along.
Yeah.
And so let me walk through my understanding of what happened there at the end. So Kovac decides that he needs a fall guy. He needs a person to take down, so he can close the case as his sister's ordering him to. And his sister is basically doing this under duress, or she's making him do it under duress. She's saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to make sure that the people you care about are horribly tortured the same way that you were. And so what he does is he arranges to have the AI of this particular pleasure hotel destroyed, and then has the lawyer, Una, basically frames her that she gave him this disease as a way that she basically was trying to lead to his final death, but she screwed it up because of the needle cast for reasons that I didn't quite understand why she would have done this. But that's the basic idea, right? Is that basically like they made Ahuna and the AI both be collateral damage.
Yeah, the reason
to close the case.
The reason that she was doing it was to, but it was because he had raped and hurt her and killed her sleeve when they were on a business trip together, according to Kovac. Kovac said, she was in this blonde sleeve. She didn't know it was going to be a trigger for him, but it triggered him, and he killed her sleeve in a way that she didn't like, and she was trying to punish him for going too far. I guess maybe he didn't rape her, but he did kill her sleeve while they were having sex, I think was the implication, at least. I don't know I don't know if that actually happened, and but she didn't mind or something, or if that never happened at all and that was just part of Kovac's lie.
I mean, I think the implication there was that it never happened at all, but that it was kind of like, on some level, what Kovac is doing there is kind of brilliant, because he's playing on all of the well-known like vices and resentments that all these characters have, including
for sure
the lawyer who is very desperate to become one of the meths, and Bancroft, who is clearly a horrible person, who will maybe he does it just to sleeves, maybe not, but he will commit horrible acts of sexual violence and lethal violence upon people who remind him of his wife. And it's funny because I remember when we first saw the sex worker who he's involved with at the very beginning, who Kovac gets information from before she's killed.
Who's Lizzie's mom, right? Is that Lizzie's mom?
No, I think she.
No. She pretended to be Lizzie's
friends
mom.
With Ada.
She was friends with. She was friends with Lizzie, right? Lizzie worked at that place, and she was friends with her, right? Is that? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's right. Kovac was pretending to be the mother.
That's it.
That's I think where it all comes together. All this stuff about switching bodies and stuff. But so I think Kovac is making all of it up, but yeah, so what do you think of what Kovac did? What do you think of like the way he pulls that off and who he hurts in the process?
Well, I think obviously I think who he's hurting is probably not great. Let me first say something about how brilliant it is. You were mentioning playing on everyone's he builds a story that's very plausible. That's true. But the thing that really makes me think it's genius is he plays on Bancroft's beliefs, because Bancroft is the one he has to convince. So he plays on the fact that this social climber isn't worthy. Like that's one thing that he's playing on. And the other thing that he plays on, which this is the real stroke of genius to me, is he plays on the fact that Bancroft actually beat her by faking the needle cast. Right,
so he kind of, plays up to Bancroft's ego. It's like, look,
exactly.
You don't remember it, but you must have done this really cool thing.
You don't remember it, but you really outsmarted her, and that is a piece of genius on this whole fake story that he's built.
Yeah,
it's really, really awesome.
Oh, I'm so wrestling with it though, because basically he does collateral damage to two fairly terrible people.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
But also to two people who are fairly terrible because they're in survival mode in terrible situations that others have put them in. Like the AI, clearly these AIs have been really badly treated by humans and have been neglected and left alone and treated as, property, as slaves. And we talked a while ago that while Poe was kind of our hero, that we had a lot of sympathy for the AIs that are much more angry at humanity. So, I kind of am not in love with that.
For sure. Like, this is him doing a bad thing. Like, and I think it's clear based on Ava's response to it. Like, I don't think the show is treating this as a good thing. The show is treating it as a bad thing, and he even looks disgusted with himself. He's only doing it. Basically, he's serving up two bad people to save his two friends who he thinks are who he believes are good people. To save Vernon, Ava, Lizzie, and Ortega, and he thinks he sees how powerful his sister is, and he says and how powerful Mr. Lung is, and he has to make the choice between. Like, he know his sister's an envoy too. Like, he knows how powerful she can be, and she's an envoy and a meth. So he's like, well, I have to make the decision between the people I love and care about, and who am I going to serve up? And he chooses two people that are, kind of vicious and uncaring toward others. Now, agreed, they're part of the system, but so are Ortega, Vernon, Ava, and all these other people. They're part of the system too, but they haven't decided to be that way.
I want to go to. I think it's a larger point there that I definitely want to come back to about the choice he makes. But I want to go a little deeper on his choice, specifically about the lawyer. Because she's a character I've been so conflicted about this whole time, because she's been very much a lackey of Bancroft and very much a, kind of pushing people to do the worst things. And, it felt. I think part of why it feels weird to me is that she has for this whole time been basically fooling herself and telling herself, I am one of these people. I am just as much upper class that they are, so I get to play by the same rules that they do. Mm-hmm. And as you said, like, what this sets up is that it kind of is a very brutal way of her seeing, no, that's not true. Like, Bancroft, like you said, Bancroft thinks of her as the help and thinks he specifically says, like, you're not worthy of our social class. You don't deserve to be this. We're going to throw you back down where you belong. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a very, like, powerful, like, slap in the face for her. That was both relevant but also really hard to watch. But it felt weird because I felt like we also got that in the last episode, or what is it, 2 episodes ago, when Tanaka had approached her and said kind of the same thing, like, you're one of us, you're not one of them. And she was like, no, I'm so different. But then that whole scene with Bancroft killing the clone, she'd really had this moment of, oh yeah, no, I am more like, I am not really one of these people. So no, it felt a little weird to have her sort of start to have that awakening and that awareness, but then not get to do anything with it because she gets thrown down so hard.
Well, but she's not dead. I actually really liked that they didn't kill her, because I could absolutely see her coming back for like a season 2 as a woman trying to rise again. Maybe she's learned some lessons. Maybe she ends up working with Kovacs or something. I could totally see this as a character going forward, and this making her more interesting. And maybe we will get her sort of, and we still get 2 episodes of this season, so it's not like I don't think her story's over by any means. I think she's gonna want revenge, but she's also maybe gonna learn lessons that she doesn't really want to be a part of this class. Maybe, who knows what she will learn, or maybe she'll become more vicious than ever,
Yeah, I think all those are options. Like, on the one hand, I think it'd be kind of funny even if she does some of that this season, but frankly, I would not be happy if she, like, teams up with Kovacs in any way, because she still has to understand that Kovacs is the one who singled her out to really destroy her life.
I mean, like, one of those, I can just see her as the type of character, like, in a season 2 where they hate each other, but for some situation forces them together. The reason I say that is just because I'd like to see things from her perspective, and the only way we're going to get that is if she works a little bit with the team maybe next season. Maybe they need a lawyer next season, or they need to navigate the law system next season, and they go to her, and she has for some reason helps them because it gives her some power back or something. I don't know. Maybe we won't ever see her again, but I just think the way they left her off makes her very available for more, exploration.
Yeah, I would like to see her get some kind of redemption arc, because I feel like, yes, she was really terrible, but she was also in this horrible position, and we both, I don't know, I've generated an awful lot of sympathy for her, and it made me especially really question what Kovacs is doing.
Yeah.
So let's move to that, because
Can I say this one thing, right? What is really horrifying about that is all of these people are contending with the myths. The myths are the real powers, and everything is powered by these myths. And it sucks to watch someone like Kovac, who would love to bring the whole system down, fighting among themselves in a way. Like, basically, he's throwing two people. I think where you're really hitting up ethically is he's throwing two people to the wolves who are just already underfoot in the power system.
Yeah,
and so it just feels like it feels like punching down, to use a comedy term.
And I think it's intentional, not by him necessarily, but by this whole system.
Agreed.
I'll just give a personal story, but that I think applies, to all these kind of situations. One of my first jobs out of college, I was a tenant organizer, helping to organize like tenant groups and stuff like that. And I was working in a building of very low income people where the landlord was treating everyone quite badly. And there were a couple of different ethnic groups that were all in the building. And one of the things that I would find out is that, the landlord would get together with some of the Puerto Rican families in the building and say, look, I'm trying to do everything I can, but those Dominicans, they keep screwing things up, and that was kind of a very blatant example, but there's a lot of, there's a great sort of whole realm of social cultural discussion about how powers that be, one of the ways they stay in power is by getting the people on the bottom to fight with each other instead of to unify and fight against them.
Absolutely.
And in some ways, I feel like that's exactly what happens here. And what's so sad is that Bancroft is doing it to some extent, but really it's Ray, the sister, doing it more than anyone else. And so that actually takes me into the thing I wanted to ask about, which is his choice. Because one of the things I think is interesting is, and I think I've heard you talk on the MCU cast about this. I know I've certainly talked about it somewhat on superhero ethics. There's this common trope in superhero stories or in action movies like that where and actually the Green Goblin in the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie names this, where the mad villain is going to make the hero make a terrible choice, and they have to choose between, do I actively do harm to this group of people or do I do harm to this group of people? And often it's this group of people I really love and this group of people I don't. And so the villain is kind of trying to force the hero into a situation of, yeah, I would screw over these people I don't like in order to save my friends, even though I don't like doing it. And I'm always frustrated because almost every time the hero finds a way to break out of that and not have to make the choice.
Yeah, but not in this case.
No, and I think it makes Kovac a lot. It makes him seem not like a hero to me. I mean, we've already known that for a while, but it also makes him much more relatable to me, because I feel like I would like to believe that in a situation like his, I would find some way to refuse to choose and to find a way to save everybody. But I think this is kind of showing like you can't always do that. Sometimes there is a element of you have to choose which is the lesser of two terrible things the lesser harm of two terrible things you can do. And I'm not okay with what Kovac does, and I'm glad other people are mad at him. I'm glad he's mad at himself. But I also have trouble sort of like wagging my finger at him and saying like, nope, you're not a hero anymore. I can't root for you anymore, because it feels very much like what this character would do, and what I would be like, it's easy for me to stand back, not being in your shoes and judge you. But I also have to understand you were in a terrible position, and I think you made the better of the all possible choices that we're seeing for you.
Yeah. And I mean, the who he decides to throw under the bus is well, it's an element of, he could have done this for a lot of different people. He probably could have come up with some sort of story to weave for different characters, but instead he chose two people that he thought were doing harm. And this lawyer was actively doing harm to the police force and actively harming Ortega. And so, it's not a good choice, but it's like maybe he tried to make the worst bad choice, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's it's I don't look to him as a role model. I don't look to him as heroic, but I also feel like this is a story of what a person would probably do in a situation like that. And I have a lot of respect for how hard he's trying to mitigate the damage. Surely it seems like the AI is permadeath, and On some level, I feel like if you have to sacrifice one of them, I'm more okay with the AI being the one that dies instead of it being the person.
Well,
And that's
it did it.
probably like I can feel my former co-host on Superhero Ethics, Jacob, whose Twitter name is literally "Bots Are People Too," screaming at me as he listens to this because maybe that's a sign of my screwed up ethics that I'm more willing to sacrifice the AI. Because yeah, I look at this and I'm like, well, but at least no utterly permanent damage was done. But of course, that's not true. It was done to the AI, just not to her, the lawyer.
Yeah. Now, what they did do very conveniently, as it were, and I kind of like that they did this because I think it shows that they are considering AI people too to some degree. What they did do for that AI is they, that we've known in the past that he hates humans, that he's like against humans, and we were kind of willing to forgive that. But then he makes a deal to try to win Lizzie in a poker tournament so that she can be tortured forever and tortured for the amusement of others. So like in that moment, you're like, oh, he wants to get this poor innocent girl and torture her for the amusement of others. And he's like, there's a great market for torturing in VR real humans. And that moment, you're like, oh, okay, he can die. Yeah, like that's not there's not much of an ethical problem with killing that guy.
And do you realize that this whole plan had been set in motion before he said that? And
totally.
I think I kind of think what they're trying to do is say like, listen, we wanted you to realize how terrible a person this guy is. We don't think we set that up enough for you. So we're going to do something really blatant to show it to you and hope you don't notice that, like, and kind of let you assume that he's always been this way, even if you didn't see it.
Yeah. Now, what you got to hope is that he's been that way in the past, which we've heard him say some bad things about humans, and you just got to assume this is something that Poe knew about him. And this is why Poe would be okay with this plan, is because this guy is. But then also Poe wanted to be a part of their poker group. So, like, maybe that's just pure loneliness on Poe's part because he's been in this hotel for 50 years by himself. But, Poe at least wanted to kind of be friends with this guy at the beginning of the show. And so now that he has other friends, he's just willing to kill him. I don't know. It does seem a little weird.
Well, especially because, and I'm going to take a term from a very different kind of ethical situation, and I think it's fair to apply it here. But listeners, if you feel like I'm appropriating or using this improperly, please let me know. We don't know much about the actual ethical relationship between humans and AIs, and like whether Poe is justified in feeling like that it's a pretty equitable relationship, or whether these other AIs are justified in feeling like that they're really slaves. But I can imagine that from the perspective of the AI that he kills, Poe looks kind of like an Uncle Tom. That they're all slaves, that they've all been terribly treated, that they finally have some freedom. And now that a human being has come back into Poe's hotel, he just snaps back right into, like, I'm going to obey all the humans. I'm going to help them as much as I can.
He doesn't use that term, but he clearly calls him, things like that in that first episode. He calls him a human lover in this episode. You know, yeah, he feels that way about Poe as well.
And I think he maybe even like makes a joke about like him calling him massa or something like that. Like I might be projecting that, misremembering it.
I can't remember. Yeah.
But certainly I feel like that there's a really interesting dynamic there that I kind of wish we'd had like, and maybe this was like originally intended and just had to be cut, but I wish we'd had like 3 or 4 more scenes of Poe playing poker and interacting with those other folks, because it would have been really nice to see Poe's evolution of at first wanting the camaraderie of these folks and then maybe starting to realize like that he's seeing that humans are not as bad as people say, and that these people are all really kind of stuck in their place of anger and that they can't move forward from it. Or that we maybe think Poe is a little bit, kissing up, and that maybe Poe should be more on the side of these folks. Like I would have loved to see more of that dynamic, and I'm hoping that it was written and maybe just had to be cut, and maybe we'll get those scenes at a later date or something. But
right, what I would like to see from Poe is, I'd love to see him. Maybe they make a decision that disregards him as a person, and he realizes, oh, do you care about me? And like maybe he has to actually like, because right now he seemed like this all powerful hotel. When Vernon kind of questioned him, he like threatened to kill Vernon. Like he seems sort of all powerful, but if they had to make a decision between Poe and Lizzie right now, they would choose Lizzie. like 100%. And I would like to see that decision made, and then Poe maybe have to wrestle with the fact that his friends aren't his friends, and then I don't know. I'd love to see that storyline because he is the friendly helper who they have enslaved. You know what I mean? Like, and I'd like to know how he feels when he really is confronted with what that really means and the ethics of all this. But we may or may not get that. I really love his character, though. He's super fun to watch. Just super charismatic, super funny. Love it.
So now let's talk about Lizzie and Ada, because I thought that was a really fun kind of take on the story. How did you feel about how that all happened?
It was pretty beautiful. Getting Ava back off the ice or whatever, getting her re-sleeved and giving her a chance. I don't remember why she's not in VR. Like, I don't know why. Was she in prison for whatever she did?
And for any, I think she was the one whose body went. No, I don't. I've never been quite clear on that. But yeah, for anyone who's not quite clear on this, what we're talking about is that Vernon has been, trying to help Lizzie, and I think he mentioned that his wife, Lizzie's mother, had died or was no longer around. But what we find out is that Kovacs was able to get her stack and download it into a sleeve, but that the only available sleeve was this white man. And as you're saying, like when Ada goes into the virtual reality to talk with Lizzie, she still appears as this guy. And I guess I thought it made sense. I think the two things I was thinking of was, one, that maybe just the technology is hard to kind of switch between
yeah, well, they said in the first episode you go mad if you're in that when they first sleeve you, you'll go mad if you look at a mirror too soon. Like, you have to be careful about your switching bodies. So it makes sense to me. I guess I thought since she had just sleeved up as this guy, she could probably still appear in VR as her mother, but it was a sweet moment when she recognized her anyway.
I mean, and I think that there may be some element to the, like, we've had so much confusion about who is actually who and who's in what body. And frankly, the actor who was playing Ada was so compelling that I felt like it would have lost something to switch to a different actor in the virtual reality. So maybe they hand wave the technology a little bit, but I'm willing to forgive that as a narrative device.
Same here.
Part of what I thought was interesting was that here, not to the dimension that I think I was hoping for and that I think we still will get at some point, but I like what they were playing with in terms of the gender flip, because this is the first time we've seen situations where someone is put into the wrong gender, but it didn't, or a body of the wrong sex. I should be much more precise in my language here, because the gender doesn't change. But this is the first time where we've seen two people who were romantically involved having to deal with it, and it was subtle. It was never mentioned. It's never been brought up. But I thought the interplay between Vernon and Ada, and seeing Vernon clearly, like, not seeing his wife in this man, but then over the course of the episode being able to come to see that and being able to physically embrace her. I would really like to see them kiss. Like, I think it would be really important to see a moment of Vernon fully accepting that this is the woman he fell in love with and that the body she's in isn't relevant to that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we're going to go there, but I think we were. I don't think that's something that the show is going to be squeamish about. But yeah, I just thought that was just such an interesting way of exploring that. And especially, like, how little would it matter in a time of real crisis where so many other things are happening right now? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a really beautiful moment, and I agree with you. I think it's an interesting exploration of sort of same-sex relationships, because it's he clearly is upset that his wife is now a man. Like, and I don't know how much he's upset for her and how much he's upset for him, because there are elements to a marriage relationship that I'm sure wants the body to be similar to the one he fell in love with, but he loves her and is very happy to see her at the same time. And when he takes her in, I think the thing that wins him over more than anything is the fact that Lizzie sees her as her. Doesn't even see. I think she's joking when she says, "Did you change your hair?" I think she clearly sees that it's a man, but she sees her as the person that she is, and it's a really beautiful moment and a sort of healing moment for Lizzie. It seems like, and a challenging moment for her mom because she's been gone, and Lizzie basically was murdered in her absence, and that was rough.
And it's interesting. I actually didn't get that at all. I thought Lizzie was being very serious, and that it's something about the way kind of Lizzie's kind of broken mind sees things in VR.
That's possible. That's possible.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how that breaks down. I couldn't tell if that was a joke because they both laugh, and she says, "You changed your hair," and it was as if like the mom was worried she wouldn't be able to see her as her, and then she did, and then there was relief, and she's like, "Something's changed. You've changed your hair." I thought that was maybe Lizzie teasing the fact that I know you're different, but I see you. But I don't know. It's hard to know because I don't know how the technology works. I don't know if Lizzie sees the same thing we do, or if Lizzie is, because she is spun up in VR, seeing the code like she's a Neo. We know she is kind of Neo right now because she's learned to control VR almost like an envoy, which she's being built up as a badass who's going to do something in the future soon, right? Like she's going to get sleeved up and she's going to be a badass.
Oh, I think that's 100% the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will also say I think you're right that the gender, the sex of the body that Ada is now in is throwing Vernon somewhat. But I also have to wonder, like, he fell in love with a black woman, and now not only is this in a man's body, it's also in a white body. And I do wonder what role that plays as well. So I don't
remember. I don't remember if we ever met. Do we know she was black? I know their daughter. I can't tell if their daughter is.
I thought we learned she was, but you're right. That might be an unfortunate assumption on my part. But,
yeah, I can't. I don't remember. I don't think we've ever met his wife. So and the daughter is much more light skinned than Vernon is. So it's possible that she was a white woman. But I have no idea. I have no idea.
For some reason, I thought we knew that she wasn't. But you're right. I mean, there's just so much we don't know there. But yeah, I thought that the way that whole thing played out was really good.
Yeah.
What did you think of the scene between Tanaka and Ortega?
I know that you said, I think in the live chat, that you thought that it's harder to identify with him now. I didn't really think that. I kind of think this is an extension of that same moral failing or moral compromise that he's made. He's gone as far out on a limb for her as he can, but now she's deciding to go so far against the system, and that's not who he is, and it's possible he doesn't believe that that's the most effective thing to do.
Yeah.
He thinks that what she's going to do is just going to get her killed, and if he joins in with her, it's just going to get him killed too. And maybe he'll make a different decision, and that'll make him seem like a hero, but I imagine if he makes a different decision, he probably will die. Because that, like, I could absolutely see a scene where he, makes the decision, like he sees Ortega in real danger, even though maybe this is, it reminds me of a parent who lets their kid run away or something, like, or lets their kid go. He's tried to tell her, like, this isn't the way, like, if you go straight up against the meths, you're going to die. And I've tried to convince you through all kinds of means all this time. And I even told you the truth so that you figured out the truth. And I was honest with you that this isn't the way to go. You can't go directly against them. I've been shepherding you all this time, and now I just have to let you go and hope that you make good decisions. But then maybe when he sees her in actual danger, he'll step up. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and again, it's breaking the trope, and I'm thrown by that. But it's good probably to do it because, you expect that he has this real sort of come to Jesus moment with her. He confesses his sins, and you sort of assume, okay, that now he goes into redemption mode. And I thought it's interesting that instead he kind of goes even deeper into hiding and even deeper into, like, I have to cover my ass. I'll help you cover your ass too, but we're not both getting into trouble here.
Yeah. Well, he also, and that's another thing that Kovac, during his whole soliloquy about what went down, he also kind of calls Tanaka out on lying. So he says, "Oh, you're not going to tell him?" And it kind of seemed almost, for a second, I thought he was going to get Tanaka mixed up in the whole lie and get Tanaka taken down too.
He's Tanaka. You mean he was going to get Ortega mixed up in it?
No, I'm sorry. When Kovac at the end is telling Bancroft what happened, he uses Tanaka in the room as kind of a whipping boy in that like in the whole story, and gets him in trouble too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that Tanaka was like Tanaka didn't have anything to do with that because it's all fake, but he still, it almost seemed like every one of their enemies that he could take down in this whole thing, he was sort of like taking them all down a peg in Bancroft's eyes, who is the real power, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, this episode was super confusing for a while, but I do think it landed in a really cool place. And we got to talk about the fight scene at the end.
Do we?
I think we do.
All right, go for it.
So I hated last week's fight scene.
Right.
This one I loved, absolutely loved.
Okay.
And I know it's another 10-minute long fight scene, but it was super inventive. I've never seen this before, from just like a purely a fight scene perspective. And it was terrifying, and because there's been just enough time since she was in the hospital, I actually did believe Ortega could die. We're also coming up on the end of the season. From a meta perspective, I'm a little tired of Ortega just being the person who might die in every fight, because that's a little annoying. But I kind of, it makes me, this doesn't make me dislike this fight. It makes me dislike last week's fight even more, because I kind of wish they'd reserved that threat for this. But this scene I loved, and I loved the way it ended with the little girl. I just thought it was all really, really cool. It was all really, really cool. I did.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought it was a completely badass fight scene with where I felt actual threat for Ortega, especially once she's stabbed through the stomach with that glass, and the sort of just Terminator nature of Raylin. Like, so it was cool. I loved it. You sound like you did not feel the same way.
I love the concept of it. I love the idea of, like, this almost kind of like a zombie movie where, like, you kill one and then just immediately the next one activates. Like, I thought that was a really great moment. I thought it was about 5 minutes too long. Like, I think you could have done just the first couple minutes of it. I was really into it, and then I just was kind of like, again, okay, again. I also, like, so you build these things for your sleeves, and the whole point is that, like, at a moment's notice, you might need to download everything that's just happened into the next sleeve so that the sleeve can get out. So why isn't there a door or a way to open the glass? Like, the broken glass was kind of a, like, nice touch to make everybody a little more bloody, but just didn't make any sense to me. And so it's a little detail, but it just kind of threw me a little bit.
Well, I don't think that this is normally how this happens. We saw it with Bancroft a few episodes ago, where, like, technicians came in and they were, like, helping him assimilate to his body and all this stuff. And there was also, like, there was some sort of system hackery going on. You could hear the system going online, like, saying, I forget exactly what it said. It said something to the effect of, like,
pod error or something like that.
Yeah, pod error. And I think this was the power of Ray as a character. She is somehow hacking the system. I don't think she's supposed to be able to do this. I don't think you're supposed to be able to wake yourself up and keep needle casting to the next body. I think she has somehow, and I mean, clearly she had something to do with this. She let that guy lead Ortega into that room, but then the guy left. Because he knew what was coming, like this, and I don't know at what point she set this up, but or maybe he just knew, I don't go in this pod, like this is someone pays for this special treatment in this pod.
This is the special vault. This is Bellatrix Lestrange's vault. We don't spend any time here.
Exactly, and I think that's what's going on here.
I can see it. And like I said, I didn't hate it. Like, I didn't go. I was probably not even going to mention the fight scene if you didn't bring it up, because it wasn't something I specifically disliked. It was just, it was a fun idea, and I thought really well executed at first. I just thought it went on too long and had a few. The broken glass moment especially just seemed like so designed just to have the additional blood of the broken glass that it didn't make sense to me, the plot.
Yeah, and I know that kind of gore is not something you enjoy. I just think that they did a good job. Like, you're talking about going on too long. One thing about a fight sequence is always taking on a new stage of the fight, and I loved how it's at first it's just straight up zombie sort of horror where there's multiple bodies leaping down and she's just firing at them. Then finally she loses the gun, and then you have a sword fight versus her metal arm, which I freaking loved. And then they lose all of that, and then it's just a fight of wills where they're like scrapping on the ground in broken glass. I just think it kind of moves through these steps, and then finally she wins the fight, and then it takes on a new phase because a little girl gets involved. Oh, and I forgot to mention punching through the chest. That was dark and crazy, but man, that was cool.
No, that was a great moment. And honestly, frankly, like, I didn't find the gore in this at all upsetting. Like, I didn't think there was that much gore. Frankly, honestly, I think part of why I kept noticing the broken glass was their bodies kept sliding over it, and I kept thinking they should be so much more cut up. And so that was a moment where I was like, it's not that I want the additional gore, but you set up something that should look much bloodier. So that was just it just threw me all. But let's actually talk about the sister a bit. So what we learned so much about her, and that she really is in some ways, I think, building to be the big bad of the season, or at least one of them.
Yeah, I think so too.
What was kind of your take on everything we learned about her?
Well, it's everything that he starts his story by saying. He says, "What we believe shapes who we are. It can save us or lead us to destruction. If we believe something too long, knowing the truth doesn't set us free, it tears us apart." And I think that is, he's believed in his sister as his family and as his partner and as an envoy and someone who believes the same things as he does. And I love the moment when he says, "She taught us better than this." And she's like, "I don't care anything about Kel." And he says, "I was talking about Mom." Like he considers their work as envoys an extension of who they are as people and as, raised by their mother, and she has gone a totally different path. Although again, another line I love. I'm glad we're getting through all these because I know these are all things I'd written down and I wanted to talk about. But she says, "I'll always come back for you," which is in the moment kind of threatening because she is a meth now, and she will always come back for him because she has that ability, and it's kind of scary that I'll always come back for you. Like you can't get away from me. It's like, we talk about that with Bancroft, how he's going to be really hard to kill. And we've talked about how to bring him down, you'd have to take down his backups and all this stuff. But she's that same thing, except she's his sister with this drive to be with him, but has done this horrible thing that he can't look at her as his sister anymore. But the thing that's really compelling about that line to me is he says, "I'll always come back for you." But the whole thing about their relationship is he did not come back for her on their planet. And that's a stroke of beauty right there. Like having that such threat for the future while a callback to the past. I really liked that.
I love that a lot. I'm trying not to be like, Debbie Downer here. There's a lot that I really liked about this episode, but I'm not loving the direction they're going with his sister with. And it's for two reasons. One is I'm having trouble understanding what her motives are. She seems a little bit like she's not mustache twirly because she wants to, she has these. It's not that she wants power and control. It's that she wants to, in theory, like save him.
That's at least part of her motivation. I think she might be overstating that a bit.
Yeah, and actually, I feel like actually right here on air, I'm talking myself into a better understanding of her, which is that because I have trouble believing that a person would do all of these horrible things in order to get to be back with her brother. First of all, the way she talks about him and the way that they touch each other feels a little bit more like lovers than it does brother and sister, and that also kind of threw me. What I think I can actually accept, though, and maybe we actually are really supposed to be getting this, is that it is to some extent that she's telling herself that she wants to save her brother, but that on some level it's two other more base motivations, one of which is she didn't want to die. She didn't want to be part of the suicide mission that Quinn wanted to go on.
Yeah, 100%.
And that she has told herself that she's acquiring all of this power and all of this influence and becoming a myth in order to be able to save her brother. But I think part of it is just that she likes it. Like, actually, the more I think of it, her character does make sense if we understand that she is the example of how this world corrupts you and how all the things we've been saying, that living forever, like, in some ways, I feel like the sister is the perfect proof that Quinn was right, because she might have started with, I really want to save my brother and I'll do whatever I have to get there. But now she's like ordering the torture of people. She owns a torture facility because it's profitable. Like, I mean, she seems utterly divorced from any sense of morality, just like the way we keep saying is going to happen to any of the meths.
That's right. Yeah, totally.
Okay. So I'm more okay with that. The other thing, though, is, and this is 30 seconds of spoilers for Picard.
Well, let's do a few more things on this if you don't mind, and then let's do a spoiler thing. Is that okay? Yeah, we can jump forward 30 seconds. That's fine. Go ahead. 30 seconds of spoilers for Picard.
Actually, forget about Picard. We don't have to talk about it. This has nothing to do with Picard. Ignore that.
Okay. Sorry.
I don't like TV shows where towards the end we find out that what seemed like 4 or 5 different enemies is actually like, 1 or 2 just working, that sort of one person is all pulling the strings and everything is in control. I really liked the idea that there was, multiple things going on, of that there was like Bancroft and his motivations, and this criminal group and their motivations, and the police and their motivations, and that totally separate from all that, there's also this sister who wants to rescue him but also doesn't understand what he's doing in this world. And so I don't know, and maybe it's that I expect too much from writers, but when I found out that she actually had been behind so much of this and that she was pulling the strings and that she'd actually been some of these other people, like that she's kind of controlling all the cops, and that she's controlling the cops, she's controlling a lot of what the criminal elements were doing, and she was kind of controlling what Bancroft was doing. I found that really disappointing, because I just was like, you writers, you set something up so good, why did you have to get lazy?
I would say that's just not the kind. I would say this is exactly fitting the kind of show this is, because it's a noir. This is a mystery story, and so this is literally a whodunit. Like, who killed Bancroft? That's the whole setup of this entire season. Sure, it's set in this fantastical world, and I still don't think you lose all those elements you're talking about. I still think Bancroft has his own motivations. Bancroft's son has his own motivations. Bancroft's wife has his own motivations. It's just, you're trying to the whole point of the season is to find out who is responsible for this. And the cops, yes, Tanaka was being paid by Ray to look the other way for certain things, but he's also being paid by Bancroft to look the other way on other things. Like, these are all characters who are doing motivation, have different motivations that conflict in different ways. Just the fact that we're solving a murder is going to lead to one person being responsible. I think that's sort of the nature of a noir story, and I don't think that's necessarily a flaw with it. We still have a very complex world, right, and multiple very complex characters.
I want to push back on that a little bit, because I think my favorite noir stories are the ones where you find out that yes, a lot of different people had different motivations, and yes, this person was sleeping with that person, and so they had motive, but that this other person also had this thing, but it's this third person who committed the murder separate from those other two.
I think that's exactly what we have here.
We still have a lot of show to get through, and it's definitely something that I've seen so often on TV shows recently that I've been more and more frustrated with it. And so we have 2 more episodes. I have a lot of room to find out that she's not really the puppet master of everything, and that other people really do have a lot of their own agency. I just kind of had that whole first scene when they're figuring all that out was very eye-rolly to me, and very really? Do you have to go this route? I hope I'm wrong.
I hear you. I don't mind there being someone behind a lot of different things. I mean, that's a part of a mystery story in many ways, but I just don't like when multiple characters' motivations are collapsed. You know what I mean? And that's what happens with other shows, other recent shows we've discussed. Multiple characters' motivations, multiple backstories are kind of collapsed into one that makes the world feel very small and makes all the characters feel like sort of automatons following this mission. But I don't think that's what's happened here. I still think Bancroft is just as rich of a character both literally and figuratively. And you know, Tanaka is just as rich of a character, and Ortega, and her being behind the few things that she's behind doesn't flatten any of these characters, so I don't mind it, you know.
Okay,
that's me personally. It's fine that we disagree.
Let's see. Like I said, it might be the kind of thing where I just have gotten so used to seeing it that like I see a hint of it and I get annoyed, and I'm very open to seeing if that's not the case.
Yeah. Last thing. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Last couple things. I wanted to bring. I loved the elevator ride between with Kovac and Mr. Lung.
Yep.
It was just, I know better than to trust you in an elevator, and it's when we learned that he believes in you know. I love when he's telling his beliefs and about the meths and everything, and Kovac blows smoke in his face. Did you catch that?
Yes, that was so good.
It's such a small detail, but it's so funny that Kovac is so annoyed at him. He blows smoke in an elevator, but he blows it out the side of his mouth directly in the face of Mr. Lung. It's just it was just really comical. And his line is, he says, "Someday you will understand the holiness of she who endures."
Yeah. Oof, all the religion stuff of Mr. Lung. First of all, it's kind of fun that like he could ask, "Are you a believer?" And in this case, it's not when he's about to kill someone. And I did like that. To me, so much of religion is about mystery. It's about having faith in the thing that you don't see. And maybe even like for evangelicals and fundamentalists, it isn't the mystery because there's a real like, I know the divine truth. But still, it's like it's a leap of faith because there isn't like, you know, the exact proof that you have. So I'm having trouble with the idea of a religion that's built around something that you do have actual proof of, you know, and like he sort of acts as though she has this incredible power that he will never have, and so he has to bow down to her wisdom. When the fact is that he could have a stack just as easily if someone bought it for him. I don't know. What was your whole take on his whole religion there?
I am not a member. I don't agree with it. No, I don't. It didn't bother me as a possibility. It reminded me of every story where you've got like, you know, there were people who worshipped the pharaohs as gods or whatever. You know, like I don't know. Right. It reminded me of every sort of one of these kinds of stories where people worship someone that is, you know, seems all powerful. And they do seem all powerful. He makes a great case for why they are gods. It's an interesting reaction to this economic and social system that he's decided to just straight up worship them. I mean, I could kind of see like I could see obviously he's not one of these people, but you remember the people 2 or 3 episodes ago who were watching Bancroft give them food and then and touch them and hug them and then die?
Oh yeah, the kind of plague victims.
Yeah. Now obviously he's not a plague victim because he's not giving everyone the plague, but you could see if that's how these people act, you could see how a young boy like Mr. Lung could see that and go, "Oh, those are the people that they're treating. Everything we have comes from them. You can absolutely see the kind of narcissism being portrayed by people like Bancroft, and apparently people like Ray could absolutely lead to like engendering followers if you're the type to believe such things. You know,
I think that's all incredibly true, but I think that for that to make sense, there has to be like, you can't really see the man behind the curtain pulling the levers, you know, like, and I think it was that kind of thing where like, you know, all they know is they see Bancroft come and feed them and die, but then two weeks later he comes back. Like, yeah, that would absolutely inspire religious thought. If you didn't know, like, because it does seem like the knowledge of stacks and needle casting and all that is pretty well known to everyone. But you're right. I mean, again, it might just be that I was just in a kind of grumpy mood today, and so I'm nitpicking everything. But I like the concept. I definitely like the concept. So to your mind, why does he then want to real death so many other people? Is it because there's a sense of like, only these special ones should get this privilege, and that like the rest of us aren't worthy of it, and that's why he doesn't want anyone else to be re-sleeving after death?
I don't know that he wants to kill other people that way. He just believes that she is all powerful and he is her servant, and whatever she wants, he does. That's the way I took that.
Now seeing this part of him makes me want to go back and watch like his fight scenes and what he says to people, because certainly I got the impression, and maybe this is because this was kind of a misdirect, that because he's religious, I thought of him in the same realm as the Neo-Sees, but certainly I thought of him as someone who did not think that most people should be, sleeving again after death. Maybe you're right or wrong there. So that's something I'll be really curious to see how it plays out.
I got you. Yeah, no, I don't think that's part of his religion. Obviously, he kind of believes the opposite. I think he just, at this point, all we know about him is he believes he's just to do whatever she says, and probably whatever other myths say. I don't know if maybe it's like the old days of many gods where he serves her and she is his god, and he would he would even fight other other followers of other gods or something. I don't know. It's crazy, and the idea of that makes me imagine a lot more, which is what I love about the show. I'm constantly imagining more and more parts of this world.
Yeah.
Where in the world did Kovacs get that pile of stacks? I don't understand where he could have gotten those stacks from. Like, where did he store them for 250 years? They weren't with him when he came out. No, he's not even in his body anymore. Like, I have no idea where he got those stacks.
Well,
was it from? They're not the real stacks at the video game place. He saw them at the video game place, but those weren't real, right?
No. So, Ray Lynn's story was that her stack was found by an archaeologist along with enough DNA material to recreate her sleeve.
Yeah.
I think we then find out though that that's a lie.
That's a lie. Yeah.
But I wonder if that's a lie that's buried in a truth of there were a bunch of those stacks found and that maybe she was involved somehow. And so that seems like it could easily have been connected to this other stuff. But
maybe.
You're right.
It feels
like there's a missing step there.
I don't think we even found out that we also, in the very first episode, the mission they're on, they have a pile of stacks like that. And I need to go back and look and see if they're blown out like these were, because it could be that this is the same stack. I don't know, the same group of stacks, in which case he's been somehow holding on to the stacks of the people he lost at the Battle of Stronghold all this time. But I don't see how he could have done that. And so I'm a little confused by where he got these stacks. Unless, you're right, unless Ray Lynn gave them to him, but I didn't see that happen. So I thought it was interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of even the episodes I don't love. Like, there's still so much that comes out of it that I'm like, I am glad that we cut down to our 3 days a week schedule. Mm-hmm. But now there's a part of me that's like, I have to wait till Monday to watch the next episode.
I know, man. I know.
You know?
Well, hey, if you want to do another one, hit me up. We might work it out. Especially all of my, and I knew this was coming, but now I just cleared my calendar yesterday for all the stuff getting canceled for COVID. And like, literally, I look at my calendar. I'm like, well, I've got like the next 15 days with zero to do. So all right, that's good. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. I hear where you're coming from. Unfortunately, I'm in the opposite boat where
you got a lot still.
Well, first of all, is that I'm kicking superhero ethics podcasting into overdrive as well. I'm gonna get actually you on pretty soon with hopefully Dave to talk about Star Trek Picard. But also, my job is I help run a nonprofit that works with kids and technology and helping kids better understand technology. So at a time when our schools are all moving to distance learning, we're actually doing more work than ever. Plus, I'm buying a new house and moving in a week. So I'm a little busy these days.
Absolutely, man.
But Altered Carbon, frankly, is proving a nice escape from it. And I'm, I think we'll wait till Monday. But
yep, sounds good.
I'm holding back. And frankly, once I moved into the new place and we're starting on The Boys then, all bets might be off. We might be back to like one a day or even more than that, because I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving the getting to talk to you about it almost every day and really follow up in a way that's hard to do when you're doing it like once a week or once every 2 weeks or something like that.
It's funny. I really like shows that don't drop all at once. I like shows that drop weekly. I always say that because it allows for time for conversation and sort of discussion and figuring out, like, kind of time to think on each episode.
Yep.
You don't have to binge everything, because I will binge everything. But I'm finding that every couple days is actually a much better. I kind of wish they'd do this for shows. Like, instead of release it, like if Netflix would release shows every 2 or 3 days, I could totally get on board with that.
Yeah, see, this is where you and I are different, because frankly, like, someday if we had, like, you know, we were able to say, like, look, we're going to do this from, like, you know, for 6, 8, 10 hours, I'd be fine doing we watch an episode, we podcast, we record a podcast. We watch another episode, we record a podcast.
That's what we would do with the
all day binge like that someday.
Yeah, that's what we would do with the Defender stuff sometimes. But when we do that, we were only doing 15-minute episodes. We'd have to. That's the thing that would, like, podcasting that much and trying to be on and trying to think that much and having hour-long conversations would probably be too much. But we probably could do it if we cut it down to shorter episodes. 15 to 20 minutes. But these are so thick and dense with material. Yeah. I don't really want to do that.
And The Boys, I know, is one of the next shows we're talking about. Like, we could, you know, there's something out there we could do that on.
Yeah, probably
so. It's completely outside the realm of anything Stranded Panda does, but I am feeling a very unfortunate need to do some kind of a podcast about Tiger King, because there's just so much to talk about there. Have you seen that yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're still talking about characters and whatever, I don't know. I'm not for Stranded Panda. We can always do something. I don't know. I'm not real restrictive. We're a small network. We can do all kinds of experiment with all kinds of things and see how they do.
I'll certainly say I know it. There's only 2 things that I really know about that show. And we're getting to the end here, so if you haven't seen Tiger King yet, feel free to skip ahead 30 seconds, because I will say a spoiler, but it's a spoiler that's been very memed all over the internet. But the 2 things I know is that all of those characters sound like they are straight out of the craziest science fiction fantasy you've ever seen. And that Carol fed her husband to a tiger. Those are the 2 things that I know beyond a doubt.
Well, you'll see. Yeah, I've seen most of it. Alyssa watched it, and so I kind of like breezed in and out, and she would put it on while she's falling asleep, and she'd fall asleep, and I'd watch like the next hour or 2 because I was trying to sleep. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's real wild of a. It's also trash. It's utterly trash. Like there's nothing redeeming about watching it. It's candy for the brain. It is. So it's fun.
It's candy for the brain, and it's the ultimate Schadenfreude. You know, it's the ultimate, like, for anyone who's looking at their life right now and going, like, things are all so screwed up. I don't have my life together. Like, the fact that on that TV show, like, every time you're like, okay, we've hit the depths of humanity. This character actually is the one who's the worst. They go back to another character and like, nope, that person's even more worse. So
yeah,
it's a lot. Anyway,
Indeed.
Should we wrap up?
Yep. All right. Thanks, guys. Again, we are Bingers Assemble, doing this quarantine watch, trying to make sure we produce lots of content for everybody stuck in their houses and just kind of enjoy Altered Carbon together. If you are interested, all of our patrons get a message on their Patreon, all Stranded Panda patrons. If you are a patron of Superhero Ethics, Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast, or DC On Screen, you can join our Stranded Panda patrons group and join our Netflix watches of these shows, where we have a live chat going during the watch at 11 a.m. on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So if it's a good time for you, a lot of us have been affected negatively by the COVID thing in our work. So if you're up for supporting any of these Patreons, it would be awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys. We are Bingers Assemble. We'll be back with you soon. Peace.
Have a good day.
Sweet. Good job. All right. Bye, live stream. Thank you.